Hello, everyone. My name is Conrad on behalf of CameraStuff. Hope you are doing fantastically well today. Just to clarify, my load shedding was scheduled to come back 6:30. So evidently still off. So I'm running off the UPS at the moment. So hopefully that survives the entire duration of the live. But yeah, so it's quite dark here. Luckily, I have a single LED illuminating my face. But yeah, the show must go on, as they say. So I'm just waiting for more people to join, and then we can continue the live. So hopefully you don't have load shedding as well. Okay, so to the viewers out there, please tell me where you're from. Please introduce yourself in the comment section. And on that note, if you have any questions to ask, please do so in the comment section. I can see it right here, and I'll tackle it as we go along. Okay, so just continuing waiting for more people to join. Okay, more and more people are joining. Okay, that's great to see. All right, so we're just going to go ahead. So today's topic would be that of the optical snoot and what the optical snoot is and how to use it. And I have one right here with me. So let's just try and get that in focus. So this is an example of, an optical snoot. So I have a person here from Wakanda. Wakanda forever. Welcome. All right, so I think my load shedding is back on. Oh, well, so let's start, shall we? So again, if you have any questions to ask, please do so in the comment section. So I'm just going to continue now. All right, so what is an optical snoot? So it looks very similar to that of a traditional snoot, but one with a couple of lenses built inside of the unit. So there's a lens within the body and an external focusable lens, which you can use to focus or defocus a projection of light. So the point of having all of these lenses is to create a focusable beam of light. So you can focus or defocus the light to either create a sharper or softer projection of light. I'm just going to show you a video of one in the studio. So again, an example of the Godox Optical Snoot Kit. And this one being used in conjunction with the Godox SL60W. Okay, so with all of this, the amount of control and precision that you get with an optical snoot is unlike any other light modifier. Now, with an optical snoot, you can use something known as a Gobo. Now, Gobo stands for Go Between Optics. And it's like a metal insert that you place in between the optics of the optical snoot itself. So here's an example. Let me just get my face back. So here's an example of a Gobo. So again, short for Go Between Optics. And it's something that you place in between the optics of the optical snoot. So you can call this a light stencil or a light template, and whatever the shape may be it a star or Venetian blinds or a heart shape, whatever, you can cast or project that shape onto a surface, a backdrop, or your subject. And with the lens itself, you can focus or defocus that light. So I played around with it in a studio, and here's the video of it. So here using something that looks like blinds. And by moving the front lens forwards and backwards, you can focus that light, or you can defocus it. So you can create a sharper projection or a softer projection. So you can use that directly on your backdrop, or you can cast it on a subject as well. So here again, using my mannequin head. So it's very cool that you can focus that projection, or you can make it softer. And also, obviously, you can turn the optical snoot itself. So you can rotate it until you see something that you like. So here's some cheesy heart shapes. And here you can use color filters as well if you want to cast or create a bit of color, just to add a nice touch to your images. So this one specifically with the Godox Kit is called an iris diaphragm. So it looks like your camera's or your lens's aperture, and with it you can make a circle bigger or you can make it smaller. And also, obviously, you can focus or defocus that projection of light. So there are many creative possibilities to untap here. As I said, you can project these shapes onto your subject or directly onto the backdrop itself. And here are some examples. So I played around with a mannequin head yet again, just to show you the creative possibilities. So you can use whatever Gobo, you can project that onto your subject, you can play around with gels as well. And as I said, there are many, many creative possibilities to untap here. All right, so with that middle image, I used the optical snoot directly on the backdrop itself to create that red circle. And just to show you some real photo shoots I've done, so this was quite a while ago, and I'll show you how to create these images in a little bit as well. But yeah, just to show you what the optical snoot is capable of. So here I used, well, the left and the right-hand image, I used that iris diaphragm, the make the circle bigger thing. And in the middle image, I used what are known as flags or frame shutters that you can place in the optical snoot, and you can create little slivers of light, or you can create a square of light, or you can create a triangle of light. So as one of my models pointed out, it's a pizza light, so that you can create a pizza shape with it. And here's some more examples as well. So don't worry, I'll show you how to create these images in a bit. All right, so specifically I use the Godox Kit for this, and it's comprised of 3 parts. Well, at base level, it's comprised of 3 parts. So it's the SA17 bones attachment, it's the SAP1 projection head, and it's a Godox lens. So there are 3 lenses available. It's a 60mm, an 85mm, and a 150mm. So obviously with a wider angle, you can create a bigger shape, and with a more so telescopic one, you can project your light further. All right, so just in regards to the Godox optical snoot, sorry, let me just show you some of the accessories that are available. So with the Gobo, you can use different Gobos. There are many different types available. So it's not just what you see on screen here. There are other Gobos available too. Using that with the Gobo holder, you just slide it inside or in between the optics of the optical snoot. You can use the iris diaphragm to make a circle bigger or smaller. And as mentioned prior, there are frames and flags that you can insert, and you can create squares or pizza shapes, or you can create slithers of light, which I quite like to do myself. All right. So in regards to the Godox one, it's just important to note that, well, via Godox themselves, their official statement is that you can't really use this with strobes or flashes. I have tried it with strobes or flashes. Some of them work, some of them don't work, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Well, basically the reason is that the modeling lamp or the flash tube may not fit inside here. And also with strobes, especially if you use a strobe with a halogen modeling lamp, that may create excess heat, and it may actually damage the strobe that you're using. So I just want to quickly show you the official promo video from Godox, just to show you some examples of how to use it and what it looks like, how to attach it to the light that you're using, etc., etc. So here specifically with the Godox LED, one with a circuit onboard LED. So that's the bones attachment that allows you to use the projection head on any bones light or light with a bones accessory mount. So So thereafter, you attach the SAP1 projection head and the lens with it as well. So here specifically, the 85mm lens is used. That you can move forwards and backwards to defocus the light. There you can see where you can place your flags, your iris diaphragm, or your gobos. So that's the iris diaphragm again. Now, so these are the flags or the shutters. So you can create your pizza shapes or slivers of light or squares. And that with the gobos. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good visual of what you can do with it, how to mount it to your light, and what it looks like. All right, so as mentioned, you can't really use it with strobes or flashes because the modeling lamp or the flash tube may not fit within the optical snoot itself. Now, if you are using Godox, I've tried it with many different Godox strobes just to show you what can be used with it. So speed lights, 8100, 8200, 8300 with the S2 bracket. That's the speed light bracket. You can use that with the optical snoot. You can use it with the 8400 and the 8600 BM. However, with the 8600 Pro and the 801200, you can't use it because the glass dome that protects the flash tube, that's too big and it doesn't fit within the optical snoot. All right, so just want to pause here. So hopefully I'm doing a good job so far. If you have any questions so far, please, you're very welcome to ask them in the comment section and I'll tackle them as we proceed. Okay, so here was me using the 8200 with the S2 bracket. And that is certainly very usable with the optical snoot. So with the S2 bracket, you can use speed lights, you can use the 8100, the 8300, the 8400 with its bones mount you can use as well. The 8600, you don't need a bracket. Luckily, the glass dome isn't that big. It does squeeze in nicely into the optical snoot. But as mentioned, the 8600 Pro and the 801200, plus a couple of extra strobes, are not compatible with this optical snoot. So let me just show you here with the Godox MS series. So you can see it doesn't fit because of that modeling lamp. And even when I take it off, because that flash tube protrudes so much, it doesn't fit into the optical snoot at all. All right, so if you're using something that I haven't listed yet, so you're welcome to phone CameraStuff and we can try and see if it is compatible with what you're using. Otherwise, you can bring your stuff to CameraStuff. We can test it right then and there. But otherwise, if you're far away from CameraStuff, just give us a ring. You can use our online chat facilities as well. We can try our very best to help you out just to see if it fits or not. All right, so just to go back to these images. So again, optical snoot was used here, left and right, the iris diaphragm accessory that was used, and in the center, those little flag shutters were used to create that pizza-shaped lights. So how do you go about creating that lights? So here you can see my 8200 used with the optical snoot, and on the right-hand side, you can see a speed light, specifically a V850, used with a bracket, a dome that you attach using the magnets, and a gel inside of that. Now, what may be odd about it is that I'm aiming it at the ceiling. So I'm allowing this light to bounce off the ceiling to create that color cast on the background. The reason why I do that, the reason why I don't aim the light directly at the subject is because that may create a nasty shadow. So to get rid of that shadow, you aim the light at the ceiling itself. So the only shadow that you see is the shadow created by the optical snoot. All right, so you can experiment with different colors, different gels. If you're using continuous lights, an RGB light here would be fantastic to use. So typically you prefer aiming that light or the color light at the ceiling just to create that nice even light and also to reduce the effect of any shadows. yeah, so that was a 2-light setup, optical snoot, and an additional light to create the color, to create these images. All right, so as mentioned at the start of the live, you can focus or defocus the light. So in these examples, I've used the frame shutters. I created a sliver of light, but also by moving the lens forwards and backwards, you can focus the light, so you can create a sharper projection, or you can defocus the light to create softer edges to that projection. And here I used an additional light on the backdrop itself just to create that separation. And I ended up creating images like these. All right, so you just create a sliver on light on the subject itself. It's also nice to have that light on the backdrop itself just to separate it. And by your choosing, you can use a fill-in light as well, just to add a bit more detail to the shadowed areas. So here, with all of these, I use the fill-in light as well. You can use an umbrella or softbox as a light modifier. Just reduce the light little bit by little bit. You don't want to get rid of that optical snoot effect. You just want to add some details to the shadowed areas. Okay, just to show you that lighting setup again. So aim for optical snoot at your subject. Obviously, you can focus or defocus the light. Just a backdrop light to separate the subject. And to your choosing, you can use a fill-in light as well. So that's a third light. Just make sure you don't overpower the optical snoot. All right, so that is basically it as far as the Godox one is concerned. So you get many different other types of optical snoots. So one I want to focus on is another one that we sell. It's called the Hilo S200 optical snoot. So that optical snoot you need to use with Canon lenses specifically, or even more specifically, you need to use it with Canon EF lenses. So this enables you to save some money, especially if you are a Canon user. You can just use any of your EF lenses with this optical snoot. So typically, optical snoots are quite expensive because of the lenses, but with this one, at least, you can save some money by using your own lenses, essentially. If you're not a Canon user, you can buy a second-hand Canon lens. You can use a lens adapter with it. But there's a couple of things to clarify here. So you need to use a Canon EF lens. So the EF lenses are designed for full-frame sensors. EFS, that's designed for crop sensors. And the reason why I say this is because EFS lenses, while the aperture or the lens itself is too small, it may create vignetting around the shape of the gobo itself. So you're not going to get a full projection of that gobo. So you need to use an EF lens that will just enable you to create a full projection of the gobo. Also, to clarify, ideally used with lenses that have a big aperture, for example, f1.8, f1.4, even more ideal. If you use a lens with a maximum aperture of f5.6, you're going to limit the amount of light. So you're going to end up losing a lot of light. And that is not so great if you're using low-powered LEDs. If you're using a flash, you can compensate for that. But typically, when using LEDs, if you use a lens with a very small aperture, you're going to restrict or lose a lot of that light. All right, so this is definitely an option. The Hilo S200. This is unfortunate. The amount of accessories that you get, that's quite limited. So at CameraStuff, we are going to get more gobos for it, a variety of extra gobos. I think we have like 25 or 30 different gobos on its way. So that will enable you some choice with this specific optical snoot. All right, so at CameraStuff, at least, you have these two options as far as optical snoots are concerned. You have the Godox one. With the Godox one, you have more options as far as accessories are concerned. With your Hilo S200, you can save a bit of money by using Canon lenses, but the accessories are just a little bit limited. All right, so that's the end of my presentation, actually. So just a quick crash course as far as optical snoots are concerned. All right, so you can see my face again. All right, so everyone there in Facebook and YouTube land, if you have any questions to ask, please do so. I don't see any questions as of yet. So I'm going to give it about 5 or odd minutes. But but please do ask questions. This is why we're doing live, this is to interact with you guys. So my electricity is just switching on and off at the moment, is going a bit mad. Luckily the UPS lasted. Okay, we're 20 minutes in. I'm quite keen to know who this is. One of my friends pranking me, but it's someone from Hogwarts, as much as we had someone from Wakanda. Okay, so what's next? Are you from the Game of Thrones land as well? Maybe you're from Middle Earth. All right, so here's the question. What's the biggest modifier that you can use for the 8300? You can use pretty much anything that won't buckle the bracket of the 8300. So you can use the S2 bracket with that ideally. People have gone as big as 150 centimeter softboxes. I've seen that personally, and the S bracket can maintain the weight of that very large light modifier. So luckily with softboxes in particular, because they are lined with silver on the inside, that spreads the light quite nicely. So you don't get that focused hotspot effect to the light. So luckily all of that light is distributed quite nicely within the softbox. Yeah, so basically to answer your question, you can go as large as 150. I've seen that with the S2 bracket. The S2 bracket can handle that quite nicely. Yeah, and typically the bigger, the softer a light will be. That's one of the golden rules of lighting. The bigger a light shaper is, or should I say the bigger a light is in comparison or relative to your subject, the softer a light will be. The smaller the light is relative to your subject, the harder the light will be. All right, still waiting for questions. All right, so I'm just going to go quickly through my presentation just to touch on just some of the key points here. So an optical snoot is like a traditional snoot, but it has some optics built into the device itself. So you have a lens within the body, and you have an external lens. So the external lens you can use to focus or defocus the projection of light. Now with an optical snoot, you can use accessories like Gobos, Gobo standing for go-between optics. That is something that you place inside of the optical snoot itself, and you get a variety of different Gobos. So in particular, Godox has these Venetian blinds or window frame effects. You have some, dare I say, cheesy ones as well, so heart shapes and whatnot. But yeah, it's quite a big variety available, so you have plenty of options. Okay, so I have a question here. Does the optical snoot work with the MS300? Unfortunately not, no. And I have the video right here. So I think, well, this is the MS200. The MS300 is basically the same shape. So it doesn't fit because of the modding lamp, but even if you take that off, the flash tube projects a little bit too much, and so it bumps against the inside of the optical snoot. So unfortunately, it doesn't work with the MS300. All right, so with an optical snoot, and depending on what Gobo accessories that you use, you can create some interesting images. You can tag team that with additional lighting, in particular gel lighting, lights with color filters. So here on the left-hand side, I bounced a blue light off the ceiling, and I projected a sliver of light onto the model. And inside the optical snoot, I used a red gel to create that effect. With the middle image, I used the flags just to create that sliver of light. And I added an additional light on the background. And on the right-hand side, again, I used the flags. I defocused the light, so the edges are not as sharp. And on the background, I just added an additional light with a red filter. All right, so left-hand side used a light on the background with an orange gel. And to the side of the model, I used the optical snoot with the iris diaphragm, so for one that creates the circle, and I defocused the light. In the middle image, I used the optical snoot directly on the background with a red filter, And just behind the model, I use the speed light just to create that side light. And on the right-hand image, well, I used one of the Godox Gobos, and it's a scattering effect. Used that directly on the model, and on the backdrop, again, used a blue filter. Okay, so just to reiterate how I got these images. So on left-hand side, right-hand side, that was the optical snoot with the iris diaphragm. And to create the color, I just bounced that light off the ceiling. Very important, bounce it off the ceiling if you don't want that, well, if you don't want that nasty shadow. And here you can aim the optical snoot at your subject. You can use the flags to create a sliver of light. You can focus or defocus the light, depending on your choosing. You can create images that look like this. All right, so it's not just these that you can do. You know, there are many, many creative options that you can untap with the optical snoot. Comment here, need to look for one. Damn, well, you know where to shop. So CameraStuff, we have both of these options available, the Godox Kit and the Hilo Kit. All right, so I'm going to give it 2 minutes. So please do ask your questions. I'm certain all of you in Wakanda and Hogwarts have a lot of questions to ask about the optical snoot. All right, so just to let it soak a bit, I'm going to play the Godox promo video again. Don't worry, I'm here in the background. All right, so something I forgot to mention is that the optical snoot does get quite hot, especially if you use it with high-powered LEDs and especially with flashes. So my last shoot using the optical snoot, when trying to get the optical snoot off the light, I think I burned my fingerprints off. So just be careful with that. Don't use it too strenuously. Don't use it for too long. Just monitor the heat of the optical snoot. So the Godox one in particular does have some vents that will dissipate some of the heat, but regardless, it does get quite hot. So just be careful with that. All right, so I think that's all from my side. So hopefully learn something about the optical snoot. Hopefully you don't have load shedding at the moment like I do. And yes, so even after this presentation, if you have questions to ask, drop them in the comment section. We have people around the clock looking at these comments. We'll be happy to answer your questions. So that's it pretty much from my side. So again, hope you're doing well. Hope it was a good video for you. So that's it from me. Bye-bye.